There it is. I've improved on the overhead squat. So today I was able to hit 80 kilos. I tried 90 kilos, but there was no way in hell I could stabilize the scapula, the shoulder girdle, and all that other stuff that's involved in keeping yourself freaking perfectly upright and getting down to a ATG squat. Whatever the thing was, I had no more juice left. So as soon as I unracked it, I mean, just push pressing the 90 kilos, I felt like, okay, this is very heavy. And it's interesting how the moment you kind of get ready at the top of a lift, whether it be a bench press, a squat, or even an overhead squat, you feel whether you are likely to finish this lift or not. At least that's for me, man. I just felt like, damn, this is going to be heavy. And I couldn't even do a quarter squat with the 90 kilos. Yeah, just the moment I start engaging, I feel like I need to lean over, which is probably a good sign, you know, to describe what's happening. Like, okay, so maybe my legs or my body, my torso is unable to keep upright perfectly like that and produce enough force to squat the bar. Maybe to squat 90 kilos, I need a little bit of leaning over. And it kind of progresses, that lean progresses as the weight goes up. So for 200 kilos, normal back squat, I need to lean a hell of a lot more forward to access that posterior chain. So the overhead squat really exposes everything. The funny thing is, the way I feel with the overhead squat is that if you can do the overhead squat given weight, it looks easy. But 1 millimeter over that limit, you know, 1 milligram rather over that limit, boom, everything crashes out and you feel like you have no stability. So it's kind of, it's like a tipping point. But it got me thinking, man, this overhead squat business. You know, I'm sitting here, I'm like, for so long, I would bang my head against the wall with specificity, trying to break through a specific idea. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to ride it all the way. When you hit these limits on specific lifts, you can continue to hit your head against the wall, or you can pivot and do something that is very closely related to that lift and try and maybe upgrade that particular variation. So in this instance, you know, the front and back squat have kind of like, it's getting hard to find new gains. It's getting very, very hard to find new progressions, new routes to, you know, keep it going. And I've tried many things. And then I found this overhead squat business and I'm like, damn, I'm very, very bad at this. So I've gone from like struggling with an empty barbell, a broomstick, to 80 kilos in the space of 3-4 weeks, something like that. And, you know, we can argue about this, you know, till the cows come home, but I feel like when you do these kinds of things, when you find close variations and you upgrade them, then you essentially, what you're doing essentially is you're building a wider base to jump from, to tackle the big boys, like the front squat and the back squat and the deadlift. So having a glaring weakness like this, you know, unable to squat a barbell overhead, that cannot be a benefit to you. But how much better are you that you can now do 80 kilos overhead squat? So that's, at least that particular variation, you upgraded it. So it's kind of like you're looking for the weakest link in all of these movement patterns that, you know, we are aware of. And you try to go, okay, well, that's pretty shitty. Let me upgrade that a little bit, because it's low hanging fruit, man. It's very easy to get. You know, it's very easy to get. So get it. That's kind of how I think about it. That doesn't mean you leave the front and the back squat alone and all that. No. You keep going on that. You keep chipping away and you keep practicing those movement patterns and you keep kind of going at it. It's just, it doesn't take a lot of energy for you to just start messing around with something that is literally next to no weight on the bar, an empty barbell. And that's kind of what I've been doing, and I'll continue to keep doing this. And the other thing that I've also noticed with overhead squats is that it requires me to go into a wide stance. But not only that, it requires me to stay very, very upright. And those two combinations have been feeling absolutely amazing on my hips. It's opened my hips up. My adductors are way more looser now. It's not just the flexibility like I was doing with the split training, you know, cranking that freaking thing. It's not just that. I'm actually actively engaging these muscles. So it's not flexibility, it's mobility. My understanding is that when you have mobility, you have stability. So these two things are distinguished by stability. Flexibility is just, you know, get a muscle stretch it as much as possible. You don't have to engage in nothing. Mobility is, can you hold certain positions? Can you hold that, ATG position with a wide stance? Control it, and then power out of it. So that to me is much better way to go about it. I mean, flexibility is cool and all that. I absolutely would love to be able to do splits and whatnot. But even those guys who are doing splits, they say add stability, add strength in the end range of motion, and all of a sudden you'll see the flexibility comes. So it's kind of like, if you address the mobility and stability side of things, the flexibility will come, or come much easier. It's kind of like what I'm talking about with the front squat and back squat. Improve on your overhead squat, and all of a sudden that thing becomes really easy, because this is a much harder variation to do, the overhead squat business. And once you start resting the bar in the front rack or the back rack, you're going to be like, wow, this is a lot easier. I can really, muscle this through. So I'm not sure where I'm going to plateau with the overhead squat, but for now, I'm going to try and get to 100 kilos in the next few weeks, next month, 2 months, whatever. Obviously, the gains slow down majorly when you start to get over the whole newbie gains. You've found the technical ability, you found a bit of mobility, and now you were talking about strength, and you're eventually going to hit the strength limit as well. So I know some of you guys have said it's not going to carry over at all. Personally, I struggle with that thought. I really do, because it's a really close cousin to what I'm trying to achieve. If I was trying to do some arbitrary freaking movement that's got nothing to do with the squatting pattern, I would understand. But this is challenging me to stay upright, to have thoracic extension, to hit ATG depth with a perfectly upright torso, or as best as I can get it. And all of those elements will benefit. The musculature involved and the postures involved will benefit the main movements, which are going to tax the thoracic extension, the lumbar extension, the ATG position, the external rotation of the femurs, all of those things which are heavily taxed because of posture in an overhead squat. These are going to carry over to a normal movement, or our main movements, like a back squat and a front squat. So I'm looking forward to it. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit more enthused. Waking up, coming in the morning here and thinking about I'm just going to wrestle with an empty barbell. It's a lot easier to convince yourself to do that than to get excited about doing 180 for freaking sets of 5, which is brutal. And, it's most likely going to hurt you. It's going to hurt the hip. It's going to hurt all of that. So I'm kind of always, nervous about hitting the big weights now, because screw pain. And that's kind of what I'm wondering now. What if the whole pain thing is going to be addressed by overhead squatting, simply because of the external rotation, the control at the bottom, and all those things? The marching is like this exercise which really, really hits the hip pain on the head. But it's not really relevant. It's not really closely related to the squatting pattern. So if I could replace the walking lunge, the marching, with overhead squats, which are much more specific to my squatting, that would be fantastic. I could do 180 for sets of 5, and then back off and do some overhead squats with an empty barbell, 40 kilos or something like that, and take care of the rehab type of thing purely through that, because I'm using wide stance, external rotation, thoracic extension, all that stuff. So, I'm always on the lookout, man. I'm always going to think about, the best way to approach these things. And this seems to be very, very beneficial. It's probably costing me some points when it comes to the bench press, because it's really smashing those shoulder girdle stability muscles. But I think eventually you will start to benefit that as well. Right now it's a bit of a shock, because I'm really hitting it hard. I just kind of have to slightly adjust things as I go along, and maybe I can hit 155 on the bench press soon as well. Also, I'm in the back of my mind thinking about the deadlift that I did the other day. That felt freaking amazing. So I'm really kind of pleased that all of these things that I've been doing, especially the GHD, obviously, all of these things are kind of taking care of the deadlift pattern without actually deadlifting. If you think about the combination of overhead squatting, the upper back stability, all of that stuff, and then the GHD, you kind of join those two things and you make a pretty good deadlifter, because there's lots of, shared muscles in all of these movements. So that's kind of really, really cool as well. All right, guys, let me finish up here and I'll head to work now, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.